Picture this. A man stands at the edge of an abyss, staring into the void. He asks the universe for meaning, for purpose, for a reason to continue. The void stares back, silent. This isn't a nightmare. This is the human condition. Since the dawn of consciousness, every thinking being has confronted this terror. What if nothing matters? What if life has no inherent meaning? The ancient Greeks felt it. The medieval monks wrestled with it in their darkest hours. Nietzsche proclaimed it when he declared God dead. Camus built an entire philosophy around it. And you, yes, you watching this, have felt it too. That 3 a.m. existential dread, that moment when success feels hollow, that creeping suspicion that perhaps we're all just actors playing roles in a cosmic joke with no punchline. But here's where it gets interesting. What if I told you that this terror, this void, this meaninglessness is actually your greatest liberation? In 1886, Friedrich Nietzsche wrote something that would shatter the foundations of Western thought. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. But people misunderstand Nietzsche. He wasn't celebrating, he was issuing a warning and a challenge. For millennia, meaning was outsourced. Gods, kings, priests, societies, they told you what mattered. They gave you a script, a role, a predetermined path. You were born into meaning. But then came the Enlightenment, science, reason. And suddenly the old stories began to crack. The cosmic order revealed itself as nothing, just atoms and void. This is what Nietzsche called the death of God. Not just the literal belief in a deity, but the death of all absolute, external sources of meaning. And most people, they're still reeling from it. They're like children who discovered their parents aren't invincible. They scramble for substitutes, money, fame, pleasure, ideology, anything to fill the void. But Nietzsche, along with Kierkegaard, Sartre, Camus, and Tolstoy, saw something different. They saw an opportunity. A terrifying, magnificent opportunity. Over the next few minutes, we're going to do something dangerous. We're going to stare directly into the abyss of meaninglessness. And we're going to discover why this might be the most empowering realization of your entire life. This isn't philosophy for academics. This is a survival guide for the modern soul. We'll explore 4 fundamental truths that the greatest minds in history discovered about meaning, purpose, and the art of living when the universe refuses to give you answers. By the end, you won't just understand meaninglessness, you'll weaponize it. You'll turn the void into your canvas. Because that's what creators do. They don't find meaning, they forge it. Let's descend into the abyss. The meaning you seek doesn't exist. And that's the point. There is no cosmic meaning waiting to be discovered. The universe doesn't care about your purpose. This is the first and hardest truth. Meaning is not found, it is created. Jean-Paul Sartre called it, existence precedes essence. You are born first, thrown into existence without instruction manual, without destiny, without inherent purpose. You simply exist. And then, only then, do you create what you are. Think about it. A rock doesn't wonder about its purpose. A tree doesn't question its meaning, only humans do. Why? Because we have consciousness, the blessing and curse of being aware that we exist. And with that consciousness comes the unbearable freedom to choose what our existence means. Sartre said, man is condemned to be free. Condemned because freedom is a burden. It means you can't blame God, fate, or the stars when your life feels empty. You are responsible. Completely, terrifyingly responsible. But here's the twist that most people miss. This responsibility is power. Absolute power. Let me tell you about Leo Tolstoy. In 1879, at the height of his fame, wealthy, celebrated family man, he stood in his study with a rope, contemplating suicide. Why? Because he had achieved everything society told him would bring meaning. Success, family, recognition. And yet he felt nothing. A profound, crushing emptiness. Tolstoy wrote in A Confession, "Is there any meaning in my life that the inevitable death awaiting me does not destroy?" He couldn't find an answer in science, philosophy, or religion that satisfied him. The rational mind offered only one conclusion. Life is absurd, so why continue? But then something shifted. Tolstoy looked at the peasants working his land. These simple people, without his education or sophistication, lived with purpose. Not because they had found some cosmic truth, but because they had constructed meaning through their daily actions, their relationships, their commitment to something larger than themselves. Tolstoy realized they weren't waiting for meaning to appear. They were creating it day by day through how they chose to live. Look around you. Modern society is having a collective Tolstoy moment. We've achieved unprecedented wealth, technology, and freedom. And yet, depression and anxiety are epidemic. Why? Because we're still looking for meaning out there. In the next promotion, the next relationship, the next dopamine hit. Social media promised connection but delivered comparison. Consumerism promised fulfillment but delivered emptiness. We're told to find our purpose as if it's buried treasure waiting to be discovered. But that's the lie. Purpose isn't found. Purpose is decided. Stop asking, what is my purpose? Start asking, what do I choose to make meaningful? The shift is subtle but revolutionary. One question makes you a seeker, forever searching. The other makes you a creator, starting now. Identify one activity that feels genuinely meaningful to you. Not Instagram meaningful, not society-approved meaningful, but viscerally meaningful to you. Maybe it's creating something. Maybe it's helping someone. Maybe it's mastering a skill. Commit to it for 30 days without justification. Don't ask if it's your calling, just do it. Meaning emerges from engagement, not contemplation. Suffering becomes purposeful when you choose it. Unavoidable suffering is meaningless. Chosen suffering is noble. The difference between despair and dignity is choice. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, wrote the most important book on meaning ever penned. Man's Search for Meaning. In the concentration camps, Frankl observed something extraordinary. Some prisoners collapsed into despair, while others maintained an inner dignity despite unimaginable horror. What separated them? Not optimism, not denial, but meaning. Frankl wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." The prisoners who survived psychologically were those who chose a reason to endure, to reunite with loved ones, to tell the world what happened, to prove the Nazis couldn't destroy their spirit. This is the paradox. Suffering is inevitable, but meaning is optional. And when you assign meaning to your suffering, it transforms from random cruelty into purposeful challenge. Consider the myth of Sisyphus, famously reinterpreted by Albert Camus. Sisyphus was condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a mountain, only to watch it roll back down for eternity. The ultimate punishment, meaningless, repetitive, pointless labor. But Camus asks, what if Sisyphus chose to find meaning in the rolling itself? What if, during that walk back down the mountain, he reflected, learned, grew? What if he decided that the struggle itself was enough? Camus concludes, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Not because his task has cosmic meaning, but because he decided it would have personal meaning. He rebelled against absurdity not by escaping it, but by embracing it on his own terms. This is the ultimate act of defiance against a meaningless universe, choosing your own interpretation of your struggle. You're living your own Sisyphean existence right now. Work that feels repetitive, relationships that require constant effort, fitness goals that demand daily discipline, dreams that seem impossibly far away. Modern culture tells you to hack your way out of struggle. Find the shortcut. Automate the difficult parts. But this is a trap, because meaning doesn't come from ease. It comes from the decision that your struggle matters. The entrepreneur who decides their financial struggle is forging resilience experiences meaning. The artist who decides their creative struggles are refining their voice experiences meaning. Same struggle, different interpretation, entirely different psychological experience. Identify your biggest current struggle, the boulder you're pushing. Now write down, I choose this struggle because, and complete the sentence honestly. Maybe you choose it because it's building something you value. Maybe because it's teaching you something essential. The act of choosing transforms suffering from imposed to purposeful. When you face setbacks, use Frankl's reframe. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this asking me to become?" This single question shifts you from victim to protagonist. You're no longer suffering randomly, you're being forged. So far, we've established two fundamental truths that separate those who thrive in meaninglessness from those who drown in it. First, meaning isn't discovered, it's created through your choices and commitments. Second, suffering becomes purposeful the moment you decide it serves something you value. These are the foundations, they're defensive truths, they protect you from the void. But now, it's time to go deeper. If you're starting to see how this changes everything, I invite you to follow The White Rabbit. Subscribe to this channel because we're going further down this philosophical rabbit hole. Leave a comment below. What's one area of your life where you've been waiting for meaning to appear instead of creating it? Let's explore this together. But here's where it gets truly radical. Because understanding that life has no inherent meaning is just the beginning. The next question is more dangerous, more liberating. If you're the one creating meaning, what will you create? The next two truths aren't for everyone. They require you to let go of the safety nets, the judgments of others, the comfort of conformity, the need for external validation. They require you to become what Nietzsche called the Übermensch, the one who creates values instead of following them. Are you ready? Let's continue. Authenticity is the only meaning that lasts. Borrowed meaning decays. Only self-created meaning endures. To live meaningfully, you must live authentically, according to values you've consciously chosen, not unconsciously inherited. Søren Kierkegaard, the father of existentialism, identified three stages of existence: the aesthetic, the ethical, and the religious. But the specific stages matter less than the underlying principle. Most people never progress beyond living according to external standards. Kierkegaard called this the crowd. People who outsource their identity to society, to trends, to what others expect. They live in bad faith, as Sartre would later term it, pretending they have no choice, that their life was predetermined by circumstances, family, or fate. But authentic existence requires what Kierkegaard called a leap of faith, not necessarily into religion, but into selfhood. It's the terrifying moment when you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What do I choose to value?" Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, understood this deeply. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your values, your judgments, your meaning, these are the only things truly within your control. Consider the story of Socrates in 399 BC. He was brought to trial, accused of corrupting the youth of Athens and disrespecting the gods. The charges were essentially political. Socrates asked too many uncomfortable questions, challenged too many assumptions, made too many powerful people look foolish. He was given a choice: renounce his philosophical mission, stop questioning everything, conform to Athenian expectations, or die. Socrates chose death. Why? Because living inauthentically, pretending to believe things he didn't believe, teaching things he didn't value, would be a fate worse than death. He told the jury, "The unexamined life is not worth living." This wasn't stubbornness. It was existential clarity. Socrates understood that meaning comes from living according to your deepest convictions, even when, especially when, it costs you everything. His death became his most powerful teaching. Authenticity is non-negotiable if you want a life that feels meaningful. We live in an age of performative existence. Social media has turned life into a curated highlight reel. We craft identities based on likes, follows, and algorithmic approval. We chase careers that look impressive rather than feel meaningful. We maintain relationships that drain us because ending them would be difficult. This is the modern form of bad faith, living according to the invisible jury of everyone else's opinions. But here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. That jury doesn't exist. Or rather, it exists, but it's not real. It's a phantom you're empowering. The moment you stop performing for the imaginary audience, you reclaim the energy to create actual meaning. Nietzsche warned, The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. The tribe wants conformity. Meaning requires courage. The authenticity audit. Make 2 lists. List 1. Values and activities you genuinely care about. Things that energize and fulfill you regardless of external recognition. List 2. Values and activities you perform because they look good, because others expect them, or because you fear judgment if you stop. Now here's the uncomfortable part. What from list 2 can you eliminate? Not all at once, but gradually, systematically, until your life increasingly reflects list 1. Practice micro-authenticity daily. Start small. When someone asks, "How are you?" and you're not fine, consider saying so, appropriately. When you disagree with the consensus in a meeting, voice it. When you want to create something weird, create it. These small acts of authenticity are training for the bigger ones. They rebuild your tolerance for being yourself in a world that pressures conformity. Death is not the enemy, it's the teacher. Awareness of mortality doesn't diminish meaning, it intensifies it. The fact that life ends is precisely what makes your choices matter. Heidegger, the German phenomenologist, introduced the concept of being toward death. Most people live in denial of death, treating it as some distant abstract event that happens to other people. But Heidegger argued that authentic existence requires confronting your mortality directly. Why? Because only when you truly internalize that your time is finite do you stop wasting it on borrowed meanings, performative existence, and conformist living. The Stoics practice this daily. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." This isn't morbid, it's clarifying. Death is the ultimate deadline, literally. It forces the question, if this moment might be your last, how do you want to spend it? Whom do you want to spend it with? What do you want to create, experience, become? The awareness of death doesn't rob life of meaning. It's the very thing that makes meaning possible. In 1862, during a particularly severe illness, Fyodor Dostoevsky had a near-death experience that would shape his entire philosophy. He had already faced a mock execution years earlier under Tsar Nicholas I, standing before a firing squad, moments from death, only to be pardoned at the last second. These encounters with mortality transformed Dostoevsky. In The Idiot, his protagonist Prince Mishkin reflects on this experience. "What if I were not to die? What if life were given back to me? What infinity! I would turn every minute into an age. I would lose nothing. I would count every minute as it passed. I would not waste one." But here's what Dostoevsky observed. People who receive this gift, survival, eventually forget. They return to wasting time, taking moments for granted, living on autopilot. The terror of death fades, and with it, the urgency to live meaningfully. Dostoevsky concluded, "We shouldn't need near-death experiences to live this way. We should carry death with us, always, as a reminder of what's at stake." Modern culture is engaged in an elaborate denial of death. We hide the elderly, we sanitize mortality, we pursue anti-aging treatments and transhumanist fantasies. We scroll endlessly, binge-watch, numb ourselves, anything to avoid confronting the one absolute certainty. But this denial has a cost. It makes life feel endless and therefore meaningless. When you have infinite time, nothing is urgent. No choice really matters. You can always do it tomorrow. The pandemic gave many people a sudden, forced confrontation with mortality. And notice what happened. People quit jobs they hated, ended toxic relationships, started passion projects, reached out to loved ones. Why? Because death became real again, and that reality clarified what actually mattered. You don't need a pandemic or near-death experience. You need a practice, a daily confrontation with your own finitude, the Stoic morning practice. Each morning as you wake, spend 60 seconds on this thought. I might not see tomorrow. This might be my last conversation with this person. This might be my last chance to create something meaningful. Not as a source of anxiety, but as a source of clarity. Then ask, how will I spend this day knowing this? This practice, done consistently, transforms procrastination into urgency, resentment into appreciation, and autopilot into intention. Write your own eulogy, not the one others would write, but the one you want to deserve. What would you want said about how you lived, what you valued, what you created, how you treated people? This isn't morbid planning, it's reverse engineering meaning. Once you know how you want the story to end, you know how to live the chapters you have left. Then, ruthlessly audit your current life. Is it aligned with that eulogy? If not, what needs to change? Enzo, what if life has no meaning? Then you are the most powerful being in your universe, because if there's no predetermined purpose, no cosmic plan, no divine mandate, then you are absolutely free to create whatever meaning you choose. This isn't nihilism. Nihilism says, nothing matters, so why bother? That's the coward's response to the void. This is existentialism. It says, nothing matters inherently, so I will decide what matters. That's the creator's response. Nietzsche called for the Übermensch, the one who creates values instead of following them. Sartre demanded we take radical responsibility for our choices. Camus urged us to imagine Sisyphus happy. Kierkegaard insisted on authentic selfhood. The Stoics taught us to focus only on what's within our control. All of them arrived at the same conclusion. Meaning is not given, it is made. You don't find yourself, you create yourself. You don't discover your purpose, you forge your purpose. You don't inherit meaning, you construct meaning. And the most beautiful part, because you're creating it, you can make it anything you want. You can make it bold, weird, unconventional, extraordinary. You don't need permission from the universe, from society, from anyone. The void isn't your enemy, it's your canvas. So I'll leave you with this challenge from Rilke. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act. Just once, with beauty and courage. Your dragon is meaninglessness. Your beauty and courage is the decision to create meaning anyway. What will you create? If this resonated with you, I urge you, follow the white rabbit. Subscribe to this channel for more philosophy that actually transforms how you live. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's struggling with the question of meaning. And leave a comment. What meaning are you choosing to create in your life? Let's build this community of creators, not just seekers. Until next time, remember, you are the author of your own meaning. Write a story worth living.